Hello class. Today we are going to be using chalk pastels to color our eagles. Here's the supplies we should have gathered. These are our chalk pastels. Notice how organized they are. The reason why they are so organized is to make sure that the chalk pastels do not get dirty. When you are using them and then you go to put them away, it is important to put them back where you got them from so that they don't mix. Mixing the chalk pastels, like if you put the blue with the yellow, those are going to rub together and get each other dirty, and then it's going to be pretty yucky on your paper. So make sure that you put the colors back in the correct spot in the organized color bin. I'm starting with a brown chalk pastel. We're just going to color the body, not the tail feathers and not the head feathers, just the body of our eagle. We're going to be very careful not to touch areas on the paper that have chalk on our hands. That's really gonna put a lot of fingerprints if you touch around too much. So using one finger, then we can smudge it to make it fully covered. Notice I didn't have to color all of the white space on the body. I just filled some space in, and now I'm smudging around the chalk pastels to get it to cover the rest of the white spots. I'm being very careful in small areas to make sure I keep it exactly where I want it to stay. Keep in mind, when using chalk pastels, we are not going to wash our hands in between colors. We might just have to use a different finger for smudging as we continue through this process. You may go ahead and start now. The next color that we're going to use is a yellow chalk pastel, and we're going to use it to fill in the beak of our bird. So filling in the space the best that we can, and then we're going to use a new finger to smudge that color. You can go ahead and start that step now. Now, if your eye is open enough where you can add some color, go ahead and put a little yellow in the eye, but mine does not have space for me to color yellow. So if yours doesn't, that's okay as well. You're gonna notice now that I'm going to start coloring my tree, but I'm gonna ask that we hold off on that step for now. I kind of got a little ahead of myself and forgot that I wanted to finish the eagle first. So you can at least just recognize how I am doing the tree, and then I'm going to do the same thing as I had done before with smudging. But when I noticed that I made that mistake, I stopped immediately. We are gonna get a white chalk pastel, and we're gonna color in the white areas on the bird. Even though it's gonna stay white, it's important that we do this step. Go ahead and do this step now. Using that white chalk pastel, we are now going to go into the body of the eagle and create those highlights. Highlights is like the placement where the light hits the object the most. So that would be on the top pieces of our feathers that we had drawn. So all the black lines that we drew with the crayon, the black crayon, you are going to create a highlight on top of that with the chalk pastel. Go ahead and start that step now. Now that I've completed my highlights, I'm ready to work on the shadows. And the shadows is the area where the sun or the light does not hit. These areas are going to be beneath the black line that we had drawn previously, or that we had traced our lines with that crayon. So I'm going to go underneath of those areas and cover just a very thin space. Don't fill in really thick areas when doing this. Once you complete your filling in and coloring that space in, go ahead and take your finger and just lightly brush over top. That's going to kind of blend it in a little bit better. We're going to leave the white just how it is so it keeps a nice bright area, but the blacks, we want to kind of smudge it just a little bit. Now I just want you to watch how I complete this picture, because you might have a little bit of variation in your picture. It may look a little bit different than mine. So I'm using that finger again to smudge in the chalk pastel where I had colored in my tree. You can also kind of use multiple browns to kind of add different changes in color on your tree if you would like to do that. Then I'm going to be using some purples and blues on the background. And notice that I turned my oil pastel to the side. That does help fill space quicker. And then I'm just going to kind of fill it in. It's not filled in perfectly, but we're just trying to get the color and the pigment onto the paper so we can then find a clean finger to smudge that around. I'm tapping my paper when I see a lot of extra pieces of fibers or the chalk dust coming. It's important that we do not blow that chalk dust up in the air. It's really bad for your lungs to breathe that dust in. And once you complete filling it in, just smudge it together and it should blend out really nicely, something like this. Once you have that all smudged in and everything filled in, there's just one last step that we need to do, and this is something that every artist should do. We're going to sign our name at the bottom of our paper. Hope you enjoyed this project.